There's a moment in every conversation when power shifts. And it's not when someone speaks, it's when someone listens. Most people think influence belongs to the loudest voice in the room. But it doesn't. It belongs to the quiet observer who says little, yet understands everything. This audiobook is called The Art of Listening, and in the next hour, you're going to learn how silence can transform your confidence, your relationships, and your ability to read people with precision. You'll discover the hidden advantage of those who speak less and understand more, because listening, when done right, isn't passive. It's power disguised as calm. This is not about being quiet for the sake of quiet. It's about mastering awareness, tuning into the emotions behind words, the pauses between sentences, and the stories people tell without ever speaking them aloud. In this audiobook, we'll explore 10 chapters, 10 powerful lessons that will reshape the way you communicate forever. You'll learn how silence commands attention, how to read what others hide, how to control conversations without force, how to transform your relationships through empathy and understanding, and how to build an inner calm so unshakable it turns you into a listener others can't ignore. Because the truth is simple. When you listen, you learn. When you learn, you lead. Now take a deep breath. You've been talking to the world long enough. It's time to start hearing it. Chapter 1. The Power Hidden in Silence. Noise is everywhere, in conversations, in your phone, in your own thoughts. The world is obsessed with talking, with proving, posting, persuading. But influence doesn't come from noise. It comes from control. And silence is control. Think of the most powerful people you've ever met. The mentor who barely raised their voice. The colleague who could say one sentence and change the tone of an entire meeting. They weren't powerful because they spoke often. They were powerful because they didn't need to. When you master silence, you shift from reacting to observing. You start seeing what others miss. Tone changes, hesitation, hidden emotion. And in that awareness lies understanding. People often rush to speak because silence feels uncomfortable. But what if you learn to stay in that discomfort a little longer? Because silence isn't empty. It's filled with information. When you pause, people reveal themselves. They fill the space you leave open, often exposing truths they never intended to share. The patient listener learns more in 10 seconds of quiet than the impulsive talker does in 10 minutes of noise. The great negotiators of the world know this. They let silence linger. They allow others to keep talking until they unknowingly reveal their cards. You can do the same in conversations, in relationships, in life, because silence gives you the upper hand without saying a word. So next time you're in a conversation, don't rush to fill the gap. Let it breathe. Let them speak, and listen not just with your ears, but with your intuition. Remember, the loudest person controls attention, the quietest person controls the room. Chapter 2. Listening Beyond Words. Most people hear, few truly listen. Hearing is about sound. Listening is about sense, and the difference between the two determines how deep your connections will ever go. When someone speaks, their words are only half the message. The rest hides in their pauses, their tone, their rhythm, a sudden breath, a downward glance, a phrase repeated twice. These are not random. They're clues, signals of emotion and truth that lie just below the surface. To listen beyond words, you must stop planning your reply while they're still talking. You must silence the inner voice that's already preparing your next argument or story. True listening demands presence, and presence demands humility, the willingness to make it not about you. Most people never reach this level. They think listening is waiting for their turn to talk. But that's not connection. That's competition. When you learn to listen beyond words, you start understanding people at their core. You begin hearing what they're afraid to say. You feel the emotion behind their logic, the pain beneath their confidence, the hope buried under their complaints. And here's the beautiful truth. When people feel truly heard, they transform. Defensiveness fades, tension dissolves, the room softens, because finally, someone's listening, not to reply, but to understand. Remember, listening is not waiting to speak, it's waiting to understand. Chapter 3. The Listener's Advantage. In every conversation, there are two types of people, those who talk to impress and those who listen to understand. Only one of them learns anything. When you listen, you gather data others ignore. You notice contradictions between words and tone. You detect uncertainty in someone who seems confident. You see opportunities others miss because you're not distracted by your own noise. Listening gives you leverage, not manipulation, but mastery. The ability to make better decisions, to sense the truth before it's spoken. It's the skill behind intuition. And intuition, despite what people think, isn't magic. It's awareness practiced over time. Think about it. How many people talk themselves out of opportunity simply because they weren't paying attention to the signs right in front of them? How many lose relationships because they were hearing, not listening? The greatest leaders, negotiators, and thinkers all share one trait. They know how to stay quiet long enough to see the full picture. So, if you want to develop influence, start here. Say less. Watch more. Let silence reveal what words try to hide. Because when you're the one who listens, everyone else is showing their hand. Remember, when you speak, you repeat what you know. When you listen, you learn what you don't. Take a moment. Look around. Every conversation you'll have from this day forward can be transformed by what you just learned. But understanding the power of listening is only the first step. The next step is learning how to use that power. Because listening isn't just awareness, it's influence in disguise. And that begins with Chapter 4, The Psychology of Presence, How Stillness Creates Power. Chapter 4, The Psychology of Presence, How Stillness Creates Power. There's something magnetic about a person who's completely present. No distractions, no phone, no need to prove anything, just quiet attention. Presence is rare, and that's why it feels so powerful when you encounter it. You've felt it before, haven't you? Someone looked you in the eye and made you feel like, for a moment, you were the only person in the world. No rush, no pretense, just attention. And that single moment left an impression stronger than 1,000 clever words. That's the essence of listening, not just hearing. Being fully there. Most people confuse talking with value. They think being heard means being respected. But true respect is earned in the pause, the moment where you stop performing and start perceiving. To master presence, you must detach from the noise around you. You must slow your mind down to the speed of real connection. When you do, people feel it. Your calm becomes contagious. Your energy grounds the space around you. Because presence says, I'm not here to win, I'm here to understand. In every room, attention is currency. Most spend it recklessly. But the listener, the one who saves it, invests it, and gives it intentionally, becomes priceless. When you're truly present, people reveal themselves. They drop their masks, they soften, because presence is trust without words. Remember, the greatest gift you can give anyone is your full attention. Chapter 5, listening to understand, not to respond. We've all been there, halfway through someone's sentence, already crafting our reply. We nod, we smile, we pretend to listen, but we're only waiting to speak. That's not listening. That's performing. Real listening requires surrender, the willingness to let go of control long enough to fully understand the other side. You can't learn from someone you're trying to out-talk. You can't connect with someone you're trying to convince. Listening to understand means entering a conversation with curiosity, not judgment. It's about exploring, not defending. Try this the next time you're in a disagreement. Instead of saying, you're wrong, say, help me understand why you feel that way. That single question will shift everything. It lowers defenses. It opens the door to empathy. It transforms confrontation into communication. Because people don't listen to those who argue, they listen to those who care. Listening doesn't mean you agree. It means you respect. And that respect often changes minds far more than any argument ever could. Remember, listening isn't submission. It's strategy. Chapter 6. The emotion beneath the words. Every word carries weight. Every tone carries truth. Every silence carries a story. When someone speaks, what you hear on the surface is rarely the real message. The real message hides underneath, in the tremor of the voice, in the hesitation, in what they don't say. That's why great listeners aren't just logical. They're emotional detectives. They know that language is layered, that truth is subtle, and that feelings often speak louder than facts. A friend says, I'm fine, but her eyes dim. A colleague says, it's not a big deal, but his tone tightens. A partner says, I'm listening, but their body leans away. These are not accidents. They're signals. They're invitations to look deeper. Listening is not just about hearing. It's about perceiving. It's the art of recognizing emotion before it erupts. If you learn to detect the emotional current beneath words, you'll begin to predict conflict before it starts. You'll learn when to step forward and when to stay silent. You'll respond to people's needs before they even express them. That's what emotional intelligence is built on. Not speaking beautifully, but listening accurately. The better you become at this, the more influence you hold. Because people trust those who can see them beyond the surface. Remember, words are logic. Tone is truth. Motivational transition. The listener's edge. Pause for a second. Think about how different your world would be if you mastered this. Imagine walking into every conversation calm, observant, aware. Imagine people leaving your presence saying, I don't know what it is about them. They just get me. That's what this audiobook is building in you. The listener's edge. You'll stop competing for attention. You'll start commanding it, not through dominance, but through depth. Because when you listen better, you lead better in love, in business, in life. And that brings us to something deeper, a truth that shifts from communication into personal transformation. Because before you can listen to others, you must learn to listen to yourself. Chapter 7. Listening to yourself. Your mind is always speaking. The problem is you rarely stop to hear it. You drown it in distraction, endless noise, endless stimulation, endless motion. But when the noise stops, when you finally sit still, your inner voice begins to whisper. It tells you what's wrong. It tells you what's right. It tells you where you're betraying yourself. But you can't hear truth in chaos. You can only hear it in quiet. Learning to listen to yourself is the foundation of self-awareness. It's how you recognize your patterns, your triggers, your truth. You can't control your reactions until you understand them. You can't grow until you acknowledge what you've been avoiding. Every time you silence your mind for a few moments, no music, no phone, just presence, you give yourself the chance to reconnect with your intuition. That intuition has been trying to guide you your entire life. You just couldn't hear it over the noise. Start listening, not to everyone's advice, not to the endless opinions of others, but to your own wisdom, the voice that says, "This is right for me," or "Something's off." That's the voice of self-trust, and the louder you let it become, the quieter the world's distractions sound. Remember, if you don't listen to your own voice, someone else will control your choices. Now we move from inner listening to outer influence, the transition from awareness to action. Because understanding yourself is power, but expressing that power through empathy is mastery. The next chapter reveals how listening transforms relationships, diffuses conflict, and builds loyalty. It's where emotional intelligence becomes real connection. Take a breath and prepare for Chapter 8, The Listener in Relationships. How to be heard without shouting. Chapter 8, The Listener in Relationships. How to be heard without shouting. Every relationship rises or falls on one simple question. Do I feel understood? People don't leave relationships because of too little talking. They leave because of too little listening. We think communication means expressing ourselves clearly, saying what we want, explaining how we feel, arguing our logic until the other side gets it. But real communication isn't expression, it's connection. And connection happens not when you speak, but when you listen. When someone feels misunderstood, they defend. When they defend, they stop hearing. And once listening stops on both sides, love turns into noise. The secret to being heard is to listen first. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. When you listen with patience, people naturally open up. When you listen with empathy, they lower their defenses. And when they feel safe, they start to hear you in return. The calm listener always wins the emotional battle. Try this. Next time you feel tension rising, pause before replying. Don't rush to prove your point. Instead, reflect their emotion back. Say, "It sounds like you're frustrated because..." Watch how quickly their tone softens, because you've done something rare. You've made them feel seen, and when people feel seen, they stop shouting. The most powerful phrase in any relationship isn't "I love you," it's "I understand you." That's the language of lasting connection. Remember, people listen to those who make them feel heard. Chapter 9. Listening through conflict. Conflict is not the problem. Ego is. Arguments don't destroy relationships. Defensiveness does. And defensiveness is what happens when listening disappears. Most people approach conflict like a debate. They wait for openings to deliver their next argument. They stop hearing halfway through a sentence because they're already building their counterpoint. But here's what the wise do differently. They stay curious. They ask, "What's really being said here?" Because behind every angry word is an unspoken fear. Behind every raised voice is a need not being met. And behind every argument is one core question both people are silently asking. Do you care enough to understand me? Listening through conflict doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means understanding the emotional root. You can't calm someone you don't first validate. You can't fix what you refuse to feel. When tension rises, remember this. Listening doesn't take your power away. It multiplies it. Because when you stay calm and focused while everyone else reacts, you become the anchor in the storm. Your silence turns into gravity, your calm turns into control, and slowly the noise bends toward your stillness. Remember, you don't win arguments by being right. You win them by being aware. Chapter 10, Listening to the World Around You. The art of listening doesn't stop at people. It extends to everything around you. Nature, timing, opportunity, life itself. The universe is always speaking. But most of us are too loud to hear it. We rush, we plan, we force outcomes, and in doing so, we miss the quiet signs trying to guide us. A delay that frustrates you might be protection. A rejection might be redirection. A closed door might be preparation. But you'll only notice if you slow down enough to listen. Listening to life means developing awareness of rhythm, the rhythm of when to move and when to wait. Every moment carries instruction. Some say, act now. Some say, not yet. Some say, walk away. The wise can hear which is which. Every failure I've ever learned from had a whisper before it, a quiet inner nudge saying, this doesn't feel right. But I talked over it. I rationalized it. I ignored it. That's what happens when we live too loudly. The world rewards those who act fast, but life rewards those who listen first. Because clarity doesn't come from noise, it comes from awareness. So listen to the silence between opportunities, to the emotion behind intuition, to the subtle signals life gives before it shouts. Remember, life whispers before it teaches. Listen before it has to get loud. Interlude, a moment of stillness. Pause this audiobook for 10 seconds. Yes, actually pause. Listen, the hum in your room, your breathing, the small sounds you usually ignore. That's the sound of awareness returning. That's the space you've been missing. You've been training yourself to notice what's always been there, the information beneath the noise. From now on, silence isn't empty. It's a conversation between you and the world, and if you stay open long enough, it will start to answer questions you didn't know how to ask. Chapter 11, The Listener's Influence. Let's talk about something powerful, influence. We often associate it with charisma, authority, or intelligence. But none of those things create influence as quickly as deep listening. When you listen with full attention, you give people the rare experience of being felt. And people follow those who make them feel understood. In business, this is how leaders inspire loyalty. In relationships, this is how partners build trust. In friendships, this is how you make people feel at home. When you listen, you're not just gathering information, you're transferring energy. You're saying, I see you. And in that moment, people see themselves more clearly too. The world is starving for understanding, and that means listeners will always lead. Because listening is not weakness. It's emotional intelligence with precision. You don't have to raise your voice to command attention. You just have to hold space long enough for truth to emerge. And truth always follows stillness. Remember, The one who listens controls the direction of every conversation. Motivational transition, the art of inner peace. The deeper you listen, the calmer you become, because listening isn't just an act, it's a state of being. When you stop reacting, you start observing. When you stop assuming, you start understanding. When you stop talking, you start hearing life for what it really is. And that calm, that stillness, changes everything. Your relationships, your success, your energy. Because a quiet mind isn't an empty one, it's a focused one. And that brings us to the next level, the science of stillness, why inner silence creates outer power. This is where listening stops being communication and becomes transformation. Chapter 12, the science of stillness, why inner silence creates outer power. There's a reason the wisest minds in history all speak of stillness. Because stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time with total awareness. When you quiet the mind, you don't lose control. You gain it. You begin to see what others can't. You start responding instead of reacting. And that one shift from impulse to intention changes everything. The modern world rewards speed, noise, and reaction. But the people who master stillness, they move slower and win faster. Think of a chess grandmaster. The room is silent. Every move measured, every breath calculated. They're not rushing because they're seeing 10 moves ahead. That's what inner silence does to your life. It slows down your reactions so you can start predicting outcomes. It gives you time to think while everyone else is talking, and it helps you recognize the difference between emotion and truth. When your mind is still, your intuition becomes clear. You start sensing when to walk away, when to wait, when to act. You stop forcing outcomes and start feeling direction. Listening is more than communication. It's a form of meditation. It brings your energy into alignment with clarity, awareness, and peace. When your inner world is calm, your outer world follows, because chaos can't survive in someone who refuses to feed it. Stillness isn't weakness, it's precision. It's clarity under pressure. It's the quiet power that makes people wonder, how do they stay so composed? Remember, stillness isn't the absence of thought. It's the mastery of it. Chapter 13. Listening. As leadership, real leaders don't talk the most. They listen the best. The difference between management and leadership is awareness. Anyone can give instructions, but only a listener can inspire trust. When you lead by listening, people feel valued. They don't just follow your words, they follow your energy. The greatest leaders, from Mandela to Satya Nadella, share a quiet strength. They don't dominate discussions, they shape them. They speak last, not first, because they know the more they listen, the smarter their words become. Listening in leadership means hearing more than what's said. It means detecting what's missing. It's hearing hesitation in your team's tone. It's noticing burnout in their silence. It's seeing potential before someone has the courage to express it. A leader's true job isn't to talk people into greatness, it's to listen them into it. When people feel understood, they perform with purpose. They show up. They care. Because they know they're not invisible. That's the power of a listening leader. They build people, not just projects. Remember, a leader who listens commands more respect than one who speaks. Chapter 14. Listening in the Digital Age. Our world has never been louder. Messages, opinions, endless noise, everyone shouting to be heard. And yet, Most people have never felt more ignored. The digital age has given us connection without communication. We scroll, react, and move on, but we rarely listen. That's why digital silence has become a superpower. When you resist the pull to respond instantly, you gain clarity others lose. When you pause before replying, your message gains weight. And when you choose to listen before you post, you build credibility that no algorithm can replicate. Online, the same rule applies. You don't have to say more to stand out. You just have to say what matters. The world doesn't need more content. It needs more consciousness. So next time you feel that urge to comment, to prove, to post, pause. Ask, am I reacting or am I responding? One word can feed the noise. Another can change a life. Be intentional. Be precise. Be the calm voice people trust in a sea of chaos, because even online, silence speaks volumes. Remember, the loudest voice online fades fast. The calmest one lasts longest. Chapter 15. Listening to heal. Listening doesn't just build connection, it builds healing. Think of the last time you were truly heard. Someone let you speak without interrupting, judging, or trying to fix you. Didn't you feel lighter? Didn't your mind unclench a little? That's what healing through listening feels like. It's not advice that heals us. It's being witnessed. People don't always need answers. They need presence. They need someone strong enough to sit in silence while they find their own clarity. And sometimes that someone needs to be you. You can be the person who makes others feel safe to speak their truth. You can be the friend who says less and means more. You can be the presence that turns pain into perspective. Because when someone feels heard, they begin to heal themselves. Listening heals others. And the more you practice it, the more it heals you too. Remember, listening is therapy for both sides. Motivational transition from hearing to understanding. Pause. Take a slow breath. You've come a long way through this audiobook. By now, you've learned that listening is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's how you connect, how you lead, how you love, and how you grow. But there's one more level left, the deepest kind. The kind that goes beyond technique. The kind that turns listening into transformation. In the final chapter, you'll learn how listening becomes legacy, how mastering silence allows you to leave behind something far more powerful than words. Take this last journey with me. Chapter 16, The Listener's Legacy, How to Change the World Without Shouting. Chapter 16, The Listener's Legacy, How to Change the World Without Shouting. When you think of power, what comes to mind? Big speeches, loud personalities, massive followings. But history tells a different story. The people who shaped the world weren't always the ones who talked the most. They were the ones who understood the most. They were listeners. They listened to their people. They listened to patterns. They listened to the whispers of change long before others noticed. Because influence doesn't start with a microphone. It starts with awareness. The listener sees what others miss. They sense what others ignore. They act at the right moment, not out of impulse, but out of insight. Listening isn't just a skill, it's a strategy for life. It's how revolutions begin quietly. It's how ideas take root before they bloom. It's how wisdom passes from one generation to the next. When you listen deeply, you become part of something larger, a chain of understanding that outlives you. Because every time you make someone feel heard, you change their life just a little. And when enough people feel understood, the world becomes gentler. Listening is legacy. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need attention. It just needs consistency. Be the one who listens when everyone else talks. Be the calm in the room, the anchor in the storm, the one who turns noise into meaning. That's how you lead without forcing. That's how you leave a mark without shouting. Remember, words fade. Understanding lasts. Chapter 17. The spiritual dimension of listening. There's something sacred about listening, something ancient. Every religion, every philosophy, every culture praises silence. In silence, the mind softens. In silence, the heart opens. In silence, the truth speaks. Listening, when done deeply, becomes more than a social skill. It becomes a spiritual practice, a way of aligning with life itself. You begin to notice the rhythm of the world, the sound of rain that teaches patience, the rustle of trees that reminds you of calm, the steady beat of your own heart, reminding you that you're here now, alive. When you stop trying to fill every moment with sound, you rediscover presence. And presence is prayer in motion. The ancient monks knew it. The philosophers practiced it. Even the greatest scientists, Einstein, Tesla, all spoke of quiet moments as the birthplace of their discoveries. Because silence isn't empty. It's filled with wisdom waiting to be heard. Listening connects you not just to people, but to the source of clarity itself. Remember, silence is not absence, it's alignment. Chapter 18. The Listener's Discipline. Listening may sound gentle, but make no mistake, it takes discipline. It takes restraint to pause instead of react. It takes strength to remain calm when provoked. It takes courage to be silent when silence reveals truth. Anyone can talk. Few can listen under pressure. But the listener's discipline isn't about suppressing your voice. It's about sharpening it. Because every word you choose after listening carries 10 times the impact. Discipline is saying, I don't need to be right now. It's learning to prioritize peace over pride. It's choosing patience when your ego wants attention. Every conversation is a test. Every silence is a chance to grow. And the reward? Clarity, power, influence. When you stop rushing to prove yourself, you start improving yourself. That's how the listener's discipline becomes the foundation of maturity. Remember, maturity begins the moment you care more about understanding than being understood. Chapter 19. Listening as Emotional Mastery. You can't control every situation, but you can control your reaction to it. And that control begins with listening. When emotions rise, listening is your anchor. It keeps you from saying what you'll regret. It keeps you from reacting to what doesn't matter. It turns your energy inward, where clarity lives. Every emotion has a message. Anger says, something needs protection. Fear says, something needs preparation. Sadness says, something needs release. If you listen instead of resisting, every emotion becomes instruction. Instead of fighting your feelings, you start learning from them. Listening to your emotions is emotional intelligence in its purest form. It's how you develop self-control without repression. It's how you maintain grace under pressure. And that grace, it's what separates the reactive from the remarkable. Remember, listen to your emotions. They're signals, not sentences. Chapter 20. The final lesson. The world listens back. There's a universal law few people understand. The energy you give is the energy that returns. When you talk too much, life talks over you. But when you listen to others, to yourself, to life, the world starts speaking back. Opportunities begin to appear where you once saw obstacles. People start opening up where they once closed off. Life begins to respond to your awareness instead of your noise. Because the universe mirrors attention. Whatever you give energy to expands. So listen more. Observe more. Be so still that you can sense the next step before it shows itself. You'll realize you were never missing guidance, only silence. Remember, when you listen to life, life listens to you. You've reached the end of the art of listening. But if you've listened carefully, you know, this isn't really the end. It's the beginning of awareness. Every conversation from now on will sound different. You'll hear more. You'll react less. You'll connect deeper. Because listening is transformation disguised as patience. And when you practice it, your relationships will flourish. Your decisions will sharpen. Your energy will calm. People will feel it. They'll sense your presence. They'll remember you not for what you said, but for how you made them feel. That's the power of listening. So, as this audiobook closes, take one final deep breath. And remember, you don't need to raise your voice to make an impact. You just need to raise your awareness. The loudest person in the room seeks attention. The quietest one commands it. If this audiobook resonated with you, take a moment right now. Pause, reflect, and hit like. Not for me, for yourself. As a promise that from this moment forward, you'll listen deeper, live calmer, and speak with purpose. In the comments, write, I choose to listen to others, to life, and to myself. Because that declaration is where transformation begins. And if this message helped you, share it with someone who needs it. You never know whose heart might soften when they finally feel understood. Subscribe to join our growing community of deep thinkers, quiet achievers, and mindful listeners. Because this isn't just another audiobook, it's a movement toward awareness. And as we close, one question remains. What topic should we explore next together? Write it in the comments. Your voice might shape the next chapter of someone's growth. Disclaimer, this audiobook is created for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not psychological, therapeutic, or medical advice. It's a guide for reflection, a practice for emotional intelligence, discipline, and mindful communication. And closing line, in a world addicted to noise, the most radical act of power is to listen.